I will share my screen.
Welcome everybody to workshop session 3 of the Nurturing an Engineering Mindset in Students series. Glad you could make it to the 3rd session, and we are recording, and I will send out links to all the recordings after the fact, as well as in addition to linkage to a very brief survey that shouldn't take more than a few minutes to complete, and just will give us some good feedback on what worked and what didn't, and how you heard about it, and all that kind of stuff. So, all right, and let me turn it over to Shannon.
All right. Thank you so much, Jeff. It's good to see you all. It's good to be back. I apologize. There may be a little bit of a lag. I just got a notification that my internet is unstable, so I'm hoping everything works okay. I'm in Boston right now, and there's a nor'easter blowing lots of rain and snow at my house, and probably all the wires and things. So I'm hoping everything works out okay. But I just wanted to thank you all for being here for session 3 of our 3-part series. So we're gonna wrap things up today. I'm excited that you're all here to join me with that. Just a reminder, if you've been with us for the past 2 other sessions, hoping if possible you could keep your video on. I know it's a tough time with lunch, and but if possible, it'd be great to see your faces and have a little bit more of a collaborative atmosphere, but no pressure. I know everybody's busy and doing lots of different things. I'll be asking for some participation throughout the session, so I ask that you do mute yourself unless we're looking for some responses, just so everybody can hear well. We're also going to be using Google Slides like we have been for the past few sessions. So I just put a link to the Google Slides there in the chat. Feel free to click on that link and join me in the slides. We will be doing some typing on the slides, and again, it's just a great place to kind of share our collective thinking and have anything you're thinking and some of the responses right here in the Google Slides. I will also be monitoring the chat box, so if you don't have access to the Google Slides, no worries. I'll see some of your chat comments as well. Also, one last norm, we haven't really been utilizing this too much over the past 2 sessions, but if there is any burning question that you have, feel free to go all the way down here. If you're in the Google Slides to slide 28, I have a virtual parking lot there. You can type anything right in here. You can address those questions at the end of the session. Again, I'll also be taking a look at the chat, so feel free to put it in any location. Great. So with that, I just wanted to kind of reorient us to our goals for this 3-part series here. I'm hoping that we have the opportunity to explore how really nurturing an engineering mindset can help create accessible experiences for our youth. Hope that we'll all become more familiar with. Today, we're going to focus on our 4 focal practices of an engineering mindset. Also hoping throughout these 3 webinar series sessions that we can think together about what really any activities we do with youth to really start to deepen our students' engagement in some of these engineering practices. So those are our goals for today. And now just kind of to reorient us again, we've discussed many of these practices here on this slide, these 10 practices for an engineering mindset. We'll dive deeper into the last 4 today, but I want you to just kind of take a look at all of them here and think about which one or which ones do you think is most important for your students to develop. So I want you to just kind of take a moment to look through, we talked a lot about how it's important for students to really engage in manipulating materials or thinking about how engineering is really related to the real world around them. We've thought about all these things. There's still a few that we need to talk about still, but if you wouldn't mind joining me then on slide 5, again, if you are in the slide deck, please join me here. I'm going to put the link to the slides here. Join me here on slide 5 and think about, is there any one practice in particular that is really important, you think, for your students to develop? Is there anything that really stands out to you? You can hop over to slide 4 and type your answer slide 5. Just think about, is there anyone in particular that really resonates with you in terms of something that's really important for your students to develop? And again, I'm happy to take a look at the chat if you want to share your ideas in there. So it looks like we have, there's a lot of different priorities that some of us have for our youth. And, I just want to stress to you that the past 3 sessions, including today, we're talking about these 10 engineering practices to help students develop in engineering. And I want to stress that, it's not necessary for you to have your students engaging in every single one. We just want to think carefully about the engineering activities that we're bringing and the STEM activities that we're bringing to our youth, and really think about what's important for them. What do we want to help our students develop? And it's great to see that we all have some ideas about that, really thinking carefully about connecting engineering or connecting STEM to the real world, applying math and science, working in teams. I agree. Kids might not like it, but adults have to do it. It's a great skill. We're going to talk about today. This idea of persistence, I think today's topics are going to really resonate with some of us as well. This idea of really trying to persevere through failure, to evaluate and iterate. Great. And then even just things that, although we haven't necessarily talked about it explicitly, the idea of critical thinking. I mean, all of these engineering practices really foster the sense of critical thinking in our students. So great. So thank you so much for that quick icebreaker. I want to, again, in previous sessions, we were introduced to this idea of an engineering mindset. So I just want to make sure we're all still remember why we're here today, and just remind you of the origin of this work. My colleagues and I at the Museum of Science in Boston started to think about, how can we create engineering experiences for youth? And when we thought about, what kinds of activities should we create, we really thought, well, what do we want our students to learn? What kinds of work do engineers actually do? And then what do we want our children to be able to do? And so then from that, from conversations and research with engineers, with educators, we distilled a set of engineering practices. And as people and as children engage and become familiar with practices, they start to develop an engineering mindset. And that's where we come to this diagram here. These are the 10 engineering practices that we want youth to engage in so that they can start to develop an engineering mindset. And at the same time, we want to understand that youth have natural inclinations to engineer and to problem solve, most of which through play. And we want to really foster these in our learning spaces. So we've highlighted 3 of these practices every session, and today we're going to highlight these last 4 practices today. How's my internet? Am I here with you? Am I breaking up at all? We're good. Okay, great.
It's mostly good. There's some choppiness here and there, but I think you're plowing through it.
Okay, great. Just start to wave your arms if I freeze, anything like that, or thank you, Jeff, in the chat. Okay, so these are the four that we'll focus on today, and I really love these four. There's so much to unpack and so many ideas that students are really really important for students to engage in. And the first one I want to talk about today is evaluating designs and iterating. So the goal of engineering is to systematically develop solutions to problems, but in many ways, finding a solution is really only beginning. It's really expected that engineers develop and improve technologies. In fact, most engineers devote considerable time to the process of improvement. And this expectation to revise and to improve is a critical component of engineering. And it provides a unique opportunity for students to learn to evaluate their own work and to make changes. And the process of improvement is really built into the engineering design process. So this is an engineering design process that I've taken from the Penn State curriculum, and there's a link to that at the end. That is currently in development, but it's in all engineering design processes, this improve step is built into the design process. The final solution that engineers release oftentimes vaguely resembles the original idea. And getting that polished product is a result of iterative cycles of improvement. And in order to go through those iterative cycles, engineers collect data, they analyze and evaluate how well the design performs. Sometimes they do calculations, sometimes they do tests on computer models, sometimes they do tests on physical models, but regardless, engineers observe, they make detailed notes, they collect, record, and analyze data, and then they use all of that information they gather to make data-driven decisions. And sometimes not all teammates agree on an engineering team on how they should improve, and so in such cases, engineers have to present their recommendations. They try and convince teammates by using evidence and data. And so really helping youth to think about how a design performed and how it might be improved is really an important role for educators. This can be done by asking open-ended questions when students are testing their designs. So, if a child comes up to you with a windmill or with a stomp rocket or if you're going to observe their tower of index cards, open-ended questions like, what happened when you tested it? Or is it working the way you expected? Why or why not? Are really important ways for educators to really just start to get students to think about their design, to think about evaluating their design. It could also be done with a scoring rubric like the one you see here. And we discussed this last week. So last week we thought about designing a functional hat. We discussed the problems that hats solve, makes a hat functional. And so we would want, if we were to design a hat, we would want to be able to test those designs to evaluate if our hat actually solves our problem or if our hat is actually functional. And so this rubric would help youth to evaluate their designs. So if they wanted their hat to stay on their head in a variety of conditions, they would test it by wearing their hat in wind or wearing it while they're walking or wearing it while they're shaking their head. So making observations from those kinds of tests is a great way for students to use that information so that they can iterate and make improvements to their design. And as they test and evaluate their solutions and their designs, youth will often figure out that their solutions are not working or they fail to function or meet all of the criteria, which really leads us to our second practice that I want to highlight today, and that is persisting and learning from failure. A successful solution to an engineering problem is often reached only after persisting through a number of failed attempts. And failure is part of and plays a really important role in engineering. Engineering designs and ideas may fail by not meeting the criteria or the constraints. And in some cases, engineers really take that opportunity to analyze why the design did not perform as expected. They'll make changes and test and evaluate the solution again. And through such iteration and iterative attempts, they learn from the failure to improve their design. The lubricant WD-40 is named because it was an engineer's 40th attempt at creating a formula for water displacement. So engineers really understand that persisting through failure is an essential part of generating innovative solutions. And you can see from this piece of this journal that we have for Student Engineering Journal, students also understand that when they test their designs, it did not work. It didn't work. For many youth, failure kind of has negative connotations and should be avoided. And engineering lessons can really help youth to understand that failure in engineering is unavoidable, it's expected, and it actually helps us to learn more. And actually going back to engineers, once engineers actually create a successful solution that meets the requirements, they actually also employ failure in another way by creating computer or physical models that test the design's outer limits to really understand the conditions in which it might fail. So, for example, they might, after designing a bridge, engineers might use computer models to understand it could support before collapsing. They might also test what strength and types of wind forces might cause it to become unstable. So testing to the point of failure really allows engineers to define parameters, make predictions about how well their technology will perform in normal conditions. So kind of going back to our students, when we include a phase of the engineering design process that's labeled improve or iterate, can really signal to youth that they're expected to fail and they're expected to try again. And giving youth time to redesign at least once is really an important component of the engineering design process, and can really allow students to analyze their failed designs and make improvements. Now, it's important for educators to communicate that it's not the individual, it's not the group that's failing, it's not the students who are failing, it's the design, which means it's time to figure out why and to try again. And engineering activities can really help to destigmatize failure by really reorienting youth towards a mindset of persisting through the failed attempt and learning from it. And youth often find this stance very liberating. You can see here from some of our, again, other journal entries that we've taken from some of our research that students really appreciate and feel liberated by this. They can again, they fail and they can try again. With educator support and encouragement, youth can really come to accept, expect, and even embrace failure as part of the problem-solving process. So you can see, students say it was fun to mess up again. Now I know how engineers feel when things designed don't work the first time, but I still want to be one. And what I especially liked was when we got to improve our ideas to make our system better. And so what I would like to do actually now is I have a classroom video that I wanted to show you, and I'm gonna play it twice. The first time I just want you to watch and observe. And the second time I'm going to ask you to specifically look for questions or prompts that the teacher's asking. But I really want us to use this. This is a classroom where students are designing sails for a fan. So basically you can see here, there's a little piece of styrofoam here that is attached to two straws, and those straws are strung along a track, a fishing line here. And so you'll see in the video that they're going to blow a fan here, and students were asked to design a sail that will catch the wind and blow this track down, blow their sail down the track. So I'll ask first that you just watch the video, and then the second time around we can kind of look for some questions and prompts that might be helpful. Okay.
See what happens. So what do you think? Is it moving? Yeah. Is our boat moving? Their boat's not moving. When you redesign this, what do you need? What do you need to change about this sail?
Like, I need to make it a little bit stiffer.
It needs to be stiffer. So think about what you could do to make it stiffer with the materials that we have.
That looks goofy.
I don't know. His looks different too. His is different from all the others I've seen too. Is it catching? Look at that. Yeah, it is.
Do you think there's anything that you could do that would make it go even farther?
Yeah. Well, this one's interesting. Let's see. Go. You put it in there. How it's going to go? Before you even start, I have a question for you. Everybody else who brought theirs back here, put it up here on the top. How come you made yours go forward?
Let me pause here. Can you see the video?
We can see it. It's progressing as a kind of a series of still photos, at least for me, instead of as an actual video. You can still kind of get the idea of what's going on, but maybe you could drop the links to the videos in the chat and people can watch them later. And do people feel like it's worth going ahead and going through the video now?
Yes, we can still see what's going on. We can hear the
Okay.
questioning.
Okay.
I can.
Okay, I'll finish this one up and then see what we can do about the other videos as well.
Okay, cool.
So you made it angle forward so that it would catch the air in that.
Okay, so what I want us to think about, you may have, you saw this teacher's name is Laura Sublett. You saw her really do a great job of supporting her students in an engineering mindset, asking questions that might help students to think about their design choices, to evaluate their designs. And so how about instead of playing it again, we can brainstorm. You may have observed questions that this educator asked, but I also want us to kind of brainstorm ourselves. When we're working with students in a variety of different settings, there's different questions we could ask, different prompts we could say, and I want us to just sit down and think a little bit about what kinds of questions or prompts can we ask or say that might encourage youth to just think about their design choices. Sometimes youth just pick the purple pom-pom because it's purple and not just because they want it to behave a certain way. So, we really want to think about how can we encourage youth to think about design choices? How can we encourage youth to evaluate their designs? What kinds of questions, what kind of prompts? And then also, what kinds of questions or prompts could we say to encourage youth to persevere through failures? You may have noticed some of these from the video, but also let's just experience to just jot down some of this here. Okay, so I'm seeing some really great ideas. Feel free to continue. Any thoughts on, what prompts or questions we might say to really support youth as they persevere through failure? We noticed in that video, couple of students' designs didn't move the way they expected. So how might we encourage youth to go back and try again, to really persevere through that failure? Well, thank you so much for sharing your thoughts on this. And, I just want to make a quick observation here that many of these questions and prompts are open-ended. We don't want to do the thinking for the students when we're engineering. We want to ensure that we're asking open-ended questions. And if that's not something, when I'm even working with educators and doing professional development in person and creating designs, and when I'm in a classroom with students, I have a set of questions in the back of my pocket, because for me, open-ended questions might not be what I'm the most comfortable with. Sometimes you want the yes or no. Sometimes you want the answer. So it's important for us to train ourselves as educators to ask the kinds of questions that allow students to do the thinking. So I might encourage you to, come back to this slide and jot some of these questions down. What happened to your model during the test? It's just a simple question, but it's really important to have the students make that kind of observation, to really think about what they did. What would happen if you changed these factors? Why do you think it moved that way? Another one that I really like is it doing what you thought it would, which really helps to get at what did you want it to do? Why did you design it so that it would do what you wanted to do? And what is actually happening? So that kind of leads us to this idea of evaluating your design. How does your design handle the wind blew it, the weight that we're putting on top of it? Any kind of test, what is your design doing? Can you think of anything that would make it work better? What you could you do differently? And I feel like these two categories, the idea of evaluating your design, really kind of lends itself to this idea of persevering. If you're going to evaluate your design, you're going to think carefully about what you could do to make it better. So I think these questions kind of overlap as well. What did you learn from the first try? So thank you so much for generating this amazing list of, really open-ended questions. And I think it's important to just recognize that that they are all open-ended, and that if you need to, you can come back and jot these down to use in the future. One other thing I just wanted to see if we could spend a minute or so on, just this idea that I had mentioned here with the WD-40. Engineering is, failure is just such an important component and necessary component of engineering. I was wondering if we might have a quick discussion, or if you had any thoughts on trying to normalize that for students, and how that might help them build their confidence in their engineering abilities. So I'd ask that anybody just unmute themselves to share a little bit about highlighting failure as a normal part of engineering, and that really helping students to build their own confidence. Any thoughts on that?
So sometimes it's not strictly failure. You may get something to work, but not very well. And then it's more about improving iteratively than it is about failing and then working.
I like that, Jeff, because I also I frequently use the Dyson story to get those points across. But the WD-40 one, that was new, and I like that, Shannon. Thank you.
Yeah. I think it's important to kind of highlight examples. Orville, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, coming from a rural area and everything, a lot of design failures and stuff like that, because it doesn't work, some of our kids will associate that to, oh, now they're going to yell at me. or now they're gonna think less of me. But it's all of that little mindset of I'm in trouble now, when all we're trying to do is help them nurture their engineering mindset. But it's hard to nurture that when it's everything else is now I'm in trouble. So kind of the way you present it in your tone, your voice, and your body language and stuff like that can definitely, if you just put a little focus on that and how you present different ways to go about the failure or to talk about a revision, that can go a long way.
Thank you. I love that. I mean, I think, yeah, the tone, the educator tone, and I think, the atmosphere is just, kind of this idea of a culture and an environment where failure is okay is really critical to engineering and to creating innovative ideas. It's sort of a necessary component, and to really think about how helpful that could be for students in certain situations, to just let them know that it not only is it okay, but it's what we learn from. So I really appreciate your insights, Orville, and really trying to create that tone and support students from sort of shifting that mindset that might not be a comfortable mindset for them. A couple other things I just wanted to mention is when you're thinking about supporting students as they engage in an engineering mindset. Even the video that we just saw, Laura does a great job of really just supporting the mindset in her very young children. You can tell from her video that her goal is not to get the most amazing and fastest sail the world has ever seen, pushing that boat down the track. That was not her goal. The goal she had was for her students to build their confidence and to expand their engineering mindset. And so in that sense, we don't want to focus on the product. You don't need to necessarily say, oh, the sail failed or the tower failed or you didn't get it tall enough. Think about the process to really highlight the fact that youth are engaging in an engineering design process and that they're at one step of it. They're at the evaluation step, but there are other steps to continue on. There's the iteration, the improvement. And so to focus on that process really supports students in thinking, there is a next step after this. It's not just my sail didn't work and now I'm going to go home. It's my sail didn't work, but I want to figure out why and make a change. And so to really help students to think about some of those practices that they're using, thinking about materials. Why did they think, you mentioned, we saw her talk about the tinfoil, the students, they wanted to find something, they realized they needed to find something that was stiffer. So, that's kind of tying us back to some of those practices that we've discussed in previous sessions, where tying it back to the material and why a material might be a good or not good choice for a technology or a design. You also want to think about like the criteria. Did your sail meet the requirements? Is it getting pushed by the wind? So kind of bringing us back to criteria and constraints. And then, just asking them, what did you learn from your testing? Again, this isn't the end point. This is the place where we're doing the most learning here. And to really encourage that learning from failure. And then again, now this kind of brings me to my next practice, which is facilitating communication and teamwork. And so engineers always work in teams. Teamwork skills are highly valued in engineering. And generating successful solutions to problems is strengthened by a group effort that involves many different people and ideas. The expertise of people, clients, community members, and others with like technical, aesthetic, safety, political knowledge. All these people need to be called upon when developing solutions to problems. And also, engineers from many different fields often need to work on a project together. So for example, mechanical, electrical, material, and aeronautical engineers all collaborate to design a space capsule. So assembling teams with members who bring diverse experiences and approaches and knowledge can really yield robust solutions. And so engineering, it's a social endeavor. People need to work together and communicate productively in groups. They share, they plan, they critique, they combine ideas. It requires negotiating. So learning how to interact both within a group and between groups is an important engineering skill. And you need some supports when they're learning to work effectively in teams. So younger students, they might start off working in pairs. And as they get older, they can work in small groups and then larger, more complex teams. And by working in teams during an engineering activity, youth can really start to develop their ability to consider other people's perspectives, argue from data and evidence, compromise. And so just as Orville said, educators should really strive to create a learning environment where youth feel part of a cooperative community. They're expected to work together, share their designs and knowledge. And some youth might be naturally competitive, but creating an environment that celebrates collaboration can be much more inclusive for all students. And becoming a good team member, just like becoming a good engineer, it takes practice. And as youth start to recognize the benefits of working in a team, they can start to develop strategies to continue to contribute as a productive team member. I have another video I'm going to try. It looks like my internet is strong for the moment. This group is a team. This is a 5th grade class. And again, I'm showing some videos from classrooms. I don't have that much video footage from out of school time sessions, but I think some of the ideas that I'm trying to showcase are the same across from a formal classroom setting to informal. But this class, their students, you'll notice that they're going to be really debating and really negotiating what materials they should use for their design. So just to give you some context, they're designing a membrane for a frog habitat. So basically, there's a little frog in a cup, not a real frog, a model frog, and they're going to put a membrane up top. They want their membrane to allow some water to pass through, but not enough so that their frog will drown. And so they've already gone through and tested materials, familiar with materials that they're able to use, and now they're trying to come up with a plan in their group. So let's see, hopefully the sound is okay. Let's give one more shot.
Your goal is not just to pick your design. Your goal is to create the best design to make sure that the frog stays moist for a certain period of time. 6 minutes, begin.
I'll do the sponge and the cheesecloth because the cheesecloth won't go on top, the sponge won't go on the bottom. The sponge is like silky.
But the cheesecloth get a little soakier than faster.
But I don't agree with that because, like, you know how when we put the cheesecloth, it dropped all of it.
Mine is different. I put the sponge on top instead of the cheesecloth because the cheesecloth gets wetter and it pours all the water to the sponge and it drips fast.
You can put y'all two because y'all
Together.
But I put the coffee first.
Yeah, I can put that.
Then we can put all of it together.
Yeah, put all of it together.
You can use the sponge. You can use the felt. And you can also use try the cheesecloth. So that we're now.
Those were good ideas.
Now, I will say I'm enjoying the conversations. You guys are really trying to think about it. A lot of you are trying to compromise and work with one another.
Okay, I think hopefully you got the sound there. But yeah, I wanted to just showcase that, and then also just kind of recognize that that kind of interaction does take a lot of practice. And I want us to just jot down some ideas that we, working in groups and just getting a group of 2, 3, 4 kids together isn't as easy as just calling their names and sitting them down at a table. And I thought maybe we could brainstorm together about how we might manage group work so that students can work effectively in teams. And so I just have a couple of scenarios here that might happen here on slide 19. So if you want to join me here on slide 19, or again in the chat, feel free to share some ideas in the chat. How do you manage groups when one youth dominates? So feel free to just take a square here and think about how you manage groups or what sorts you offer. How do you assign roles when you work in groups? So do you assign roles, and how does that go? And then do you have any other strategies that you use when you do group work that might be helpful to share so that we can think carefully about supporting our students as they engage in effective teamwork? So let's take another 30 seconds to jot a couple of ideas here. Again, join me in slide 19 or in the chat. Well, thank you again for sharing. I don't want to stop anybody from adding any of their ideas. But I'm really enjoying some of your thoughts here. I love this idea that the leader is expected to catalog other people's input, or really just this idea of assigning different roles to ensure that everybody has an access point or opportunity to participate. So really encouraging them. So as an educator, we can ask other youth their questions and their opinions, but encouraging all members, sometimes even having some like prompts on the table, some sentence stems to support students in thinking about like, okay, I hear what you said, and this is my thought. This is how I would like to respond. Assigning roles and rotating those roles is a helpful way to get different folks, different students participating. And then I like this too. Try to do a mix of letting youth pick their own groups versus assigning groups so that they can work with a variety of peers, and to try testing different ideas instead of just picking one. So I've got 2, and that really helps with this idea of iteration and evaluating their designs, and really thinking about how to choose the best option, and to really see all multiple solutions can solve the same problem, and really thinking about testing many of them, testing more than just one. So thank you for your input and thoughts about group work. So before then we kind of wrap up for this afternoon, I want to just talk a little bit about this last practice that is important to me. It's important to all of our students, and it's really to to really have students and youth, as they're engaging in engineering, to really start to develop their own identities as engineers. To not walk away and say, oh, I'm not a math person, I'm not a science person, I'm not an engineer. We're all problem solvers, we're all engineers in our own small way, and engineering challenges can really not only help youth to understand what engineering is, but also how it's relevant to their lives. By generating solutions to problems, youth can really see their own potential as engineers and problem solvers. And we as educators can nurture this engineering agency and identity in a number of ways. I mean, really the first one is to just have your youth participate in authentic engineering challenges. To demonstrate to your youth that they are capable of engaging in such work. And, you can provide opportunities for youth to engage in meaningful and relevant engineering challenges. And throughout your students engaging in those challenges, we can refer to the work that they're doing as the work of engineers. So, referring to them testing their designs as, that's what engineers always test their designs. Referring to a failed attempt, engineers always have to try again. They always persevere. So kind of making those connections to students explicit, to let them know that this is the work of engineering. They are being engineers as they engage in this process. And, when you think back to all of the practices that we've discussed over the past 3 sessions, having youth actively tackling engineering challenges, collaborating with peers, and others to produce engineering ideas and designs really fosters the formation of an engineering identity. The same, we talked again about this idea of criteria and constraints. When we ask youth to think of and generate criteria and constraints, when we have them evaluate those designs constraints, when we have them think about the properties of materials, all of those things are things that engineers do, and we can make that explicit for students to think about so that they can identify themselves as an engineer. Now I have 2 videos. Luckily, one of them is a link. So how about the others I just have saved to my desktop, so I couldn't just share the link with you, but how about I think just like a minute and a half, or probably just a minute. I'm going to put myself on mute. How about we all just click on this link here in the slide? So join me here on slide 22. I just want to share one more video. Let me see if I can put the link in the chat as well. One more video about really observing students starting to come to the idea that they can be an engineer. They are an engineer. So I encourage everybody to come here to slide 22. Click on the Google here to watch this video. And let me see if I can put it in the chat as well. Can you click on it and see it? Oh, sorry.
I cannot, but I don't know if that's just a me
Yeah, it
issue.
seems to be working.
Okay. Cool.
Okay, it's working. I'll press play. Well, let me let you do it. I think it's working now. Give it a shot.
Did you put the link in the chat?
Let me see if I can get the link. Oh, you know what? Give me a minute. Let me see.
At this point, do you guys feel like materials engineers? Yes. Why? Anybody?
Yes. That's because we already did like 3 of the engineering design process. Okay. And we asked the question, and we answer what are solutions.
Okay. Anybody else? Do you feel like a materials engineer, and why? What makes you feel that way? Yes, Marcus.
Because since I've been here all 3 days on our material engineering process, I feel engaged and interested in what's probably going to happen next, just as a material engineer would, and I think I'm really ready.
You are? Okay, wonderful. I think you guys are all ready too.
Well,
this
I
point,
just
you
want
guys
to
feel like
apologize again
material-
for my unstable connection, and I'm wondering if the nor'easter and the snow that's billowing outside my window is causing the problem. But also the videos that I have are we've filmed through the Museum of Science, and so they're not shareable links that I can just link to on YouTube. So I apologize for that. But they are some really cute kids who are identifying as engineering.
I will send out the link to the slides after this, along with the recordings, and people may be able to watch the videos off of the slides after the fact as well.
Great, thank you. Anyway, I do just, want to emphasize for you all, we've talked a lot. There's 10 practices of an engineering mindset that I've identified. We've talked through a lot of them. I just want to kind of leave you with this idea and this thought about what changes you might be able to make to include more opportunities for youth to engage in developing an engineering mindset. So, as I mentioned at the beginning of the session, to have all of our activities use every practice here, but I do just want to think carefully about when you are doing a STEM activity, when you are doing an engineering activity, what slight changes could you make? Could you give them an opportunity to explore materials? All of the things that we've talked about, I just wanted to give you a chance to do a final reflection. Let's just take 1 minute to think a little bit about an activity that you do or you might be planning to do. Are there any changes you might be able to make to include more opportunities? And why don't we just come in here to slide 26 to share some of those? It could be an idea from today that you're going to take with you, or also just different ways that you might try to include more engineering practices into your work with students. So we're here on slide 26, but we're answering, here, let me move this slide. We're here on slide 26, we're answering this reflection, sorry, now we're on slide 25. We're answering the reflection, what changes can you make to an activity that you do or you're planning to do that might include more opportunities for youth to engage in engineering sets? And you can share some of your thoughts here on slide 25. And then one other thing I just wanted to share, throughout the past 3 sessions, more so in the first 2, I shared a variety of engineering activities as examples. These are some really great resources that have, high quality STEM activities. You can Google engineering activities in out of school time and get a lot of teachers pay teachers and Pinterest ideas. These sites are really helpful because they have a lot of search. You can customize your search. It can be like an out of school setting. You can customize for age range, and they just have a lot of really great resources that, for most of them, and a lot of them really do align with many of these practices of an engineering mindset. So I just kind of encourage everybody to, when you're trying to do STEM, when you're trying to do engineering, think carefully and just be a little, use your own critical thinking skills to think about, okay, how am I implementing this so that I can support my students in developing their own engineering mindset. And I think this link here, let me get this. Let me change that link. Anyway, these are some great resources for you to take a look at, and I encourage you to take a look at some of these resources and to think carefully in the future about how you might include more engineering practices into your program. And thank you so much for your time today. And I'm here for minutes if anybody has any questions or thoughts to share.
Thank you so much, Shannon. I did put a link to the survey. I'll also send it out in email in a few minutes as well. But...
Great, thank you so much. I've enjoyed the last few weeks.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lana. Thanks, Orville. It's great seeing you.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, Jeff.
Bye.